call to order our regular session of March 5th, 2019. First item that we have this morning is I'm sorry, it feels like just the day is getting started. This evening, opening prayer and pledges of allegiance to the flag of the United States and the state of Texas, and Mayor Pro Tem Hayward would lead us. If you join me in standing, please.
Everyone bow your heads, please. Heavenly Father, thank you for this day. Thank you for watching over us and bringing us here safely. Heavenly Father, we ask that you continue to watch over our first responders, active duty. Keep them safe and bring them home safely. As we go through the night to make decisions, that we ask that we do these things in your accord and do them and continue to remain harmonious as we do. And I ask that you just guide our thoughts and our questions and our answers for those things that we need. Ask these blessings in your Son, Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state under God, one and indivisible.
Thank you, Mrs. Hayward. All right, before I move into a couple of presentations that we have, I do want to acknowledge that from Troop 51, young man is here this evening, Lance Poley. Is that how it's pronounced? Very good. Well, welcome and thank you for joining us this evening. I understand you're working on a communication merit badge. Fantastic. Very pleased to have you with us. Very good. Carried all the way through Eagle Scout. All of the things being Eagle Scouts get higher equal. Man, good night with the mouth tonight. All of the things being equal, Eagle Scout gets a job over someone who doesn't have it. Stick with it. It's worthy. It's worthy. All right. First thing we have then this evening, a presentation of the from the Texas Recreation and Park Society, or TRAPS, an award. Mr. James and Ms. Shrum.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I am pleased to start off this council meeting tonight recognizing our Parks and Recreation crew. We had the pleasure last week to go to El Paso, Texas for the Texas Recreation and Park Society Annual Institute. It's a week of institute conference sessions and award programs for those departments across the state who've done good work. And our crew was awarded the Maintenance Achievement Award for the trailer stage conversion. So we had an old flatbed trailer that we were going to dispose of. The crew decided to get creative, solve a problem that we had where we were having a lot of events in the park where we needed a stage that was more mobile and easier to bring in and out and set up and take down. And they got very creative, converted this trailer, built a platform, wired it up for electrical use, built some steps, stabilizer jacks, welded on. You've seen it now out at Willenchick Walk. You've seen it at Music in the Park. And so it's been very handy and functional, and we've used it a lot. So at this time, I'd like to bring out our crew. Jared Montney, crew leader, Stephen Wilgosh, Israel Segura, Robert Dobratz, Todd King, and the rest of our Parks and Rec staff, and I'd like to have the mayor come down and present this award to them.
Absolutely. Happy. So, I had a little time this weekend to do a little bit of reflecting, and realized that I've been present here at the city for just shy of 14 years, and this bit of work that has been done is really exemplary and demonstrative of what's been going on in the city since long before most of us got here. Since 1958, when the first group got together and said, we're going to incorporate and we're going to do something a little different from all the cities around us. So in that tradition, thank you for carrying it on and for a job very well done. right, and next up we have a presentation of the Selma Schertz Salute to Service Members 5K Run, Walk, Roll Sponsorship Plaque. Councilman Gutierrez says you have this. Absolutely. You should have told me before.
Operation Comfort provides support to our veterans who are wounded, injured, and ill. As a veteran, it is with great pride that I present this plaque to the City of Schertz for supporting and sponsoring this great cause. Thank you.
What Mr. Gutierrez didn't mention is that this is the 9th year that this has gone on, and it just kind of started off as an idea about what Tommy Daly. For those of you who don't know Tommy Daly, he's the mayor of Selma, and he likes to remind me that he was elected before I was, which is great. That's good stuff. But we've had a very healthy competition between us since before either of us was ever elected to public office, when our kids played t-ball together. So he came up with an idea that said, we got to do something. We got to have something really. He's going to watch this video. He's from Long Island, by the way. So we got to do something between Schertz and Selma, right there where Schertz and Selma meet. We should have a run. We should raise some money. We should raise some money for Operation Comfort. Mikey, it's a great idea. Let's do it. And so it began. And we've had our 9th year here, and it's been a fantastic success and grown every year, and has raised a great deal of money for an exceptional cause. So with that, I'll accept this, and thank you very much, sir. I appreciate it. Good stuff. Thank you all.
Oh, that's right. One more.
I guess the only thing I can say there is wait a few months. That's most fun I've had all week. Next, we want to recognize some new employees, and we're going to start with EMS.
Make sure I don't sit in that seat. Mr. Mayor, Council, Dr. Brown, I would actually like to recognize our newly promoted operations manager, Brandon Hill.
Mr. Hill.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Mr. Mayor, Council, Dr. Brown. We have one full-time paramedic I'd like to introduce to you tonight, Thomas McSherry. Thomas comes to us from Montana, currently resides in Hutto, Texas. He's been in EMS a little over a year, went to Temple College and got his paramedic certification. Came to Schertz on November 26th. He's getting ready to clear his credentialing process in the next couple weeks. He's former U.S. Army infantry, so we thank him for that service. And he's currently married, has a 14-month-old child, and please welcome me and welcoming Thomas to the city of Schertz.
Fantastic, indeed. By the way, new employees do not have to speak in the microphone, but it is there for the taking if you wish. That's okay. You don't have to say anything. You just got to bring us back if we're in your ambulance. All right, very good. Then we're at a good trade. Welcome, and we hope you have a long career with us. Happy to have you on the team. Please.
Good evening, Council. I'm Allison Gorzel. I'm the office manager for EMS. I would like to introduce my newest employee. He's our EMS billing clerk, Ms. Leslie Baldwin. She's been with us since December of last year. She's going to be handling all our data entry. She has taken the EMT class here at Schertz and passed it, and so she's an EMT basic. She's engaged, and she has a 5-year-old son, and they're currently expecting another baby at the end of the year.
Fantastic. Well, welcome.
And in her free time, she likes to spend time with her family.
Very nice. Well, welcome. Happy to have you with us. You want a shot at the microphone, or are you going to pass as well? It's all good. There's no pressure. It's all fine. Listen, we're very happy to have you all with us. Welcome to the team. All right, next up, Fire Department.
Mayor and council.
Evening.
I have the pleasure to introduce our two newest hires. We have Crick Kennedy. Crick grew up in the Spring Branch Bulverde area where he went to Smithson Valley High School. It's been a dream of his to become a firefighter and couldn't be happier that it's here in Schertz. Chris says he's looking forward to a great career with the city of Schertz. Eric Surian, the order of the two. Eric grew up here in the Schertz-Cibolo area, and he is a graduate of Clements High School. He has a bachelor's degree from UT San Antonio. Eric says it's always been a dream to come back to his hometown and work in the community where he grew up. He too looks forward to his career here in the city of Schertz.
Fantastic. Welcome to both of you. Glad to have you with us. And yes, please.
I'd just like to say thank you for the opportunity. I am happy to be here.
We're thrilled to have you with us, indeed.
Thank you for the opportunity. I look forward to a long career here.
Fantastic. And Eric, Crit, happy to have you with us once again. Thank you. All right, next up, Police Department.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Dr. Brown. Christopher Reynoso was born and raised in San Antonio. He attended and graduated from Sandra Day O'Connor High School. And upon completion of high school, enlisted in the United States Army, where he did 7 years of active duty before separating with an honorable discharge at the rank of sergeant. We thank him for his service. Officer Reynoso successfully attended and completed the San Antonio College Law Enforcement Academy and also holds his associate's degree in criminal justice. Christopher worked with the Converse Police Department for about 4 years before deciding to join our team. He's married with his wife, Brittany. They have 3 boys, Damien, Eli, and Blake. And in his spare time, he enjoys spending time with his family, camping, and fishing. So it's my pleasure to introduce Officer Christopher Reynoso.
Welcome. Please.
I'd just like to say thank you for this opportunity, Mayor, council members. It's an honor to meet you all, and thank you all for what y'all do. I'm glad to be here as part of your team.
Thrilled to have you as part of our team. Welcome. Welcome. All right, next up, Parks and Recreation.
Mr. Mayor, Council, Dr. Brown, I'd like to introduce you to our newest park worker, Todd King. He grew up in Peoria, Illinois. Lived in Peoria, Illinois until 2018. where he moved to the Schertz area with his wife, Kathy. Todd has 4 children and 3 grandchildren. He went to Woodruff High School in Peoria. He's worked the construction industry most of his life. He worked for a small company called Caterpillar. I don't know if you guys have heard of it. Now the fun stuff, his hobbies. He enjoys gardening, songwriting, and carpentry. Also likes concrete work and landscaping. So perfect fit for us. So we're happy to have Todd as a part of our team, Team Schertz, and we're already seeing a great impact on with his skills in the park.
Fantastic. Todd, welcome. Welcome. And if you wish.
Thank you, Mayor, and I'm happy to join the Parks and Recreation team here in Schertz. Thank you.
Very happy to have you with us. Welcome. All right, and then we have the library.
Good evening, Mayor and Council, Dr. Brown. It's my pleasure to introduce to you tonight our newest library employee, Design Hartman, who's hiding behind me back here. Design was actually born in China and adopted by her family at 4 months old. They moved around quite a bit when she was younger, and she's lived in quite a few states. Things that are on my list of places to go visit, but Washington, Oregon, that's one of them. California, she's moved around all kinds of places. Also Arizona, Oklahoma, Wisconsin, and they finally settled here in Texas about 8 years ago, where she lives with her family still in Cibolo. She graduated from Steele High School in 2016, and she's currently a nursing student at the University of Incarnate Word, where she's expecting to graduate in 2021. We're hoping that she will stick with us while she's getting this degree before she takes off into the big wide world. But she is the oldest of 6 children, and she has a dog named Oliver, which she says that's one of her fun things to do is to... what
That's not Oliver.
That is not Oliver. Not at all. Oliver's a rescue dog, and she likes to take him on walks. But also, no surprise, one of her other favorite things to do in her spare time would be reading, which seems to be the thing at the library. So we're very happy to have her. She's been a great fit so far, and we are just thrilled to death to have somebody.
Wonderful. Well, welcome. Happy to have you with us. Take that as a no at the mic, no problem. All right. Next up, we have city events and announcements. So who has that duty? Is that Oliver? No. It's Mrs. Gonzalez. Okay. Very good.
Thank you, Mayor. So we currently have our annual spring cleanup going on. It is from Saturday, March 2nd, all the way through March 17th. It continues from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. It's free service to Schertz residents. The temporary drop-off site is at 125 Pecan Drive. The hazardous items drop-off dates coming up this weekend, March 9th through 11th. For detailed information, you can call Republic Services or Schertz Public Works. Tomorrow evening is going to be our Schertz Now and Then event. It's going to be taking place at the public library, the Schertz Public Library, at 6 p.m. And we're excited to announce the completion of the documentary that chronicles the rich history and growth of Schertz. And it's free and open to the public. On Saturday, March 9th, is going to be the Nature Discovery Series, Discover Rocks, at 10 a.m., and that's at Crescent Bend Nature Park. And then next Tuesday, March 12th, we'll be back here for a regularly scheduled City Council meeting at 6 p.m. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you, ma'am. Next up, we have announcements and recognitions by the city manager. Dr. Brown, you have anything this evening, sir? Nothing this evening. It's announcements and recognitions by the mayor. I have nothing to add this evening. So first up, then, hearing of residents is Mark Roberts. Mr. Roberts, good evening.
Hi, Mark Roberts, 4300 Spanish Oak, and I know they all left, but I'd like to welcome all the new employees and welcome them to the city, and I am here to try to figure out how I can help pay those people. So I want to talk about the planning department, and I'm here to speak on the difficulty of development from a small business perspective in our city. There are several items I'd like to speak to and was going to be requested to be on a future agenda for some additional time. First of all, I'm not here to throw the planning department under the bus. They do a good job, and they're trying to adhere to a planning Bible that we have called the UDC. But based upon my experience over the years with the planning department, it is becoming more and more burdensome in trying to get any type of building project done in a reasonable amount of time. Our UDC is becoming so difficult to adhere to without numerous meetings and delays. It's so rigid, and the planning department can sit right across from you and agree with what you're doing meets the intent of the code, but yet it does not meet the letter of the code, and they do not have the ability or the latitude whatsoever to be able to approve anything. So I built a new repair facility on 309 in 2017. I'm trying to build an additional facility on 1103 along the same design as a 309 facility. And it appears that the UDC is being interpreted totally different from what it was in 2017. So either we got away with some variances that are no longer valid now, or someone looked at it and agreed that it meets the intent. And so I think each of you have probably seen my facility, and I think it is in keeping with what we're trying to do here in the city. So I have several examples I'd like to speak out, and I will stay to my 3 minutes. And one is materials. My facility on 3009 is a combination of rock and stucco, with the majority of the building being stucco. It is predominantly stucco, as a matter of fact. I'm being told this is not allowable, and that stucco is not a masonry product, and it has to be limited to 50% of your building. Yet I just looked at 2 buildings today that just were built in this last year, and they are more than 50% stucco. I'm being told that I need an 8-foot masonry fence between my property and an adjacent general business property that is currently being used as a residence. It has a residence at the back of the property. And not only must I build an 8-foot masonry fence, it's going to go from the back of my property to the very front of my property, that to me is a huge eyesore. I must also give up a 20-foot landscape barrier inside the fence that nobody will see. And I'm removing 4 protected trees from the 1.5 acre development. I'm having to plant 31 trees on this 1.5 acre development, and yet I still must pay a mitigation fee or plant additional trees or larger trees. And I look at this and say, I'm building an automotive repair shop. I'm not wanting to start a nursery. I'm not wanting to start a tree farm. That every one of those trees is going to have to be watered, maintained, and landscaped around. And the property adjacent to me, that's general business, when it gets developed, they're going to have to plant the same amount of trees along their property line as I'm having to plant along my property line. And I think it's unrealistic, and I think it's hampering, and these are just a few of the items, and I think it's hampering our ability for small business to come into our community and be able to do some development, to create jobs, to create property tax revenue, to create sales tax revenue, to pay for all these new people that we're hiring. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mrs. Dennis, don't you live in Cibolo, but you're signed up under hearing of residence? Okay.
Yes, thank you.
It's all yours.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Well, yesterday, March the 4th, Mayor, you celebrated another milestone in your life by turning 50. Mayor, don't get all weird about getting older. Your age is merely the number of years the world has been enjoying you. Please play video.
Oh my goodness. I have no idea how you got your hands on that.
Can you do the sound?
You see the pretzel. Yeah. It's with the pretzel. So scared for that picture. Oh, that's the bear. Right. That's a long time ago. It's a while ago. Oh my.
birthday, Mayor. And they wanted to make sure that I told you that the fire marshal wouldn't let us put all the candles on the cake, so we just had to have the 2, the 5 and the 0.
If the council doesn't mind, can we recess for about 10 minutes and get some cake?
Let's do it. Come on down.
Well, again, I am most appreciative. I really do thank you all. All right, we're going to call our meeting back to order at this time. There's no one else signed up under hearing of residents, so we're going to move to a workshop. And that first item that we have this evening is discussion regarding the class and compensation study.
My IT friends, can you help me out?
There it is.
Perfect. Thank you, Mark. Good evening, Council, Mayor, Dr. Brown. I'm going to try to keep this brief tonight. I have an update on class and comp, and he's right on my page, moving ahead. Tonight, I just want to chat with you a little bit about the city's compensation philosophy, a review of what we did in 2015 with our first ever class and comp study, where we're at today, and then looking ahead to this year and what we hope to accomplish, and then some recommendations we have for y'all. Next slide, please. As some of you will recall, the council adopted a compensation philosophy in 2015 at the time that we conducted the first class and comp study. And the basic tenets of the philosophy include commitment to providing internally equitable and externally competitive and sustainable wages, promoting transparency in pay and pay practices, conducting class and comp studies at regular intervals, and striving to maintain a balance between compensation and strategic staffing levels. And so we intend to use these fundamentals as we move forward this year looking to these studies. Next slide, please. Oh, this was just the second of the compensation philosophy. Next slide, please. So in 2015, at the direction of the council, the city hired a consultant and we conducted our first ever class and comp study. An approach was adopted that would be targeted at bringing specific city positions that lagged in the market in line with the 45th percentile. So the 45th percentile was chosen at that time due to the city's limited financial resources, as well as it was a position that we believed was achievable and a good starting point for us to put us in a more competitive market position. So the implementation schedule that was phased over 4 years cost the city just over $2 million, and that did include the full weighted cost implications of the salary adjustments. So year 4 just was effective October 1, 2018. With it being our first go-round, the study was not without flaw, but I do believe it was a huge step in the right direction for the city and for our employees. We did learn some valuable lessons, so I think this time around we'll be better prepared to address some of the issues as they come up. We'll know better what to look for throughout the process. And so one of the things that became really apparent after the 2015 study was the ongoing internal compression issues that we're facing. And this is due to a variety of reasons, departmental changes, promotions within departments, long-tenured employees. So it's like there's a number of reasons why we're experiencing this. Employee perception is another challenge that we've been facing. And with any type of study like this, we acknowledge that, unfortunately, we're not going to be able to please everybody. And there are folks who feel like, even though we're striving to do our best, that maybe they feel like they didn't get a fair shake or their position wasn't appropriately reviewed during the study. And so that will be a challenge that we'll face going into the next study as well. Next slide, please. So where we are today, as you'll recall with the 2018 Employment Engagement Survey, pay continues to be the #1 issue identified by employees. Additionally, we have ongoing recruitment and retention issues. You can see here, just in a couple of departments, some attrition rates. So we're able to fill, but our turnover continues to happen, and low pay is often cited as a reason on exit interviews. Additionally, there's some long outstanding compensation issues such as certification pay and incentive pay, as well as a lack of avenue for job progression. And also what we see in the city is too many unique job descriptions and titles which are not consistent with industry standards, and that poses a problem for us as we go into these types of studies. So those are all issues that we're really hoping we can address appropriately with this next study. Slide, please. Next slide, please. Thank you, sir. So what you'll see here are the study goals, and really you should be familiar. They're in line with the compensation philosophy that I just spoke about. And so essentially we're looking to ensure internal and external equity in this study, and that's really what we're hoping to achieve. There will be some key decision points that we have to make, such as where does the city want to be in terms of how we stack up against our competitors? How well are we paying compared to what others can offer? Next slide, please. So as for the class and comp, we anticipated focusing on position classification and wage surveys. As you know, the city has made several changes, I believe very positive changes in the last couple of years with regard to our benefit package. More recently, we've seen that with our health insurance and what we've been able to offer our employees. And so through the course of those projects, HR has done quite a bit of legwork in terms of benefit review and comparison. And we already have a good amount of data from our benchmark cities with regard to benefits and where we kind of stand. And I think what we'll find moving forward is that overall, the city is pretty well situated in terms of our benefit offerings. And so for that reason, we think that conducting the benefit study in-house makes sense, the benefit portion of that study. We are proposing, however, to use an external professional firm to conduct a class and comp study for a variety of reasons. One, because of their extensive compensation experience. Also, they have access to readily available data. They have access to often very sophisticated and proprietary analysis tools and instruments that they can use that we wouldn't otherwise have access to. Another factor, frankly, is the workload of the HR staff. As you'll recall, you just approved a contract. So moving forward, one of the big projects we're going to be focusing on is the implementation of the new payroll and HR systems. And so with that, we don't think that we're going to have the bandwidth in-house to complete this in a timely manner. And lastly, but maybe most importantly, is the benefit of impartiality. So I think that's going to be key for our employees for trust and validation of the study results. We anticipate that next slide, please. We anticipate that the study process will follow a similar process as what we saw in 2015. And so that will include employee outreach, job assessments, market analysis, and ultimately we'll look to the consultant for advice and recommendation on how best to move forward in the process. But we'll work to develop action plans to meet the study objectives, and once we have that process outlined and are comfortable moving forward. Next slide, please. Another topic that's been of discussion for a number of years and something that council was interested in the past was having us look at staffing levels. And so in researching the issue, what we found was that these types of studies are generally not conducted as part of a class and comp study, but rather as a standalone or distinct study. And one of the main reasons is because class and comp studies generally aren't looking at workload as a factor. And obviously that will be the basis for a staffing level, or a staffing study. So generally speaking, a staffing study will consist of review of the city department workload, performance measures, and then those of comparable governments to assess appropriate staffing needs. It is important to note, however, that these studies, there's many variables, right? And so you're looking at different operating budgets, community priorities, organizational structures, geography, a number of factors that go into these studies. And because of the complexities involved, We are also proposing that an external firm handle this staffing study as well. Next slide, please. So to kind of sum it up where we're at, what we're proposing to council is to go ahead and move forward in a timely fashion with both the staffing and the class and comp, and so that will include or consist of us finalizing the scope of work and then beginning the procurement process. As you can see here, we have a time frame of 1 month. We are looking to move quickly because we would like to be able to use some of the data, the early indicators, in the upcoming budget process if possible. So, i.e., where do we need to add staff? We'd like to try to get some of those results back as quick as possible. And then you'll see the benefit study again. We're proposing to conduct it in-house, and that would be done concurrent with the class and comp study. Next slide. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Great. We'll open up to council. Mr. Edwards?
I just have one thing that we might want to consider, or maybe having the consultant take a look at maybe a total compensation. So when we look at the legacy costs of employees going forward, it's not only what we pay, but it's also the legacy costs that are ongoing, such as health care, things that we continue to pay out. If they could somehow incorporate that in, or at least see if they could do that for us.
Yes, sir. Our plan is to bring the results from the class and comp as well as the benefit results, and so we can look at a total picture. So we can certainly ask our consultant how they may be able to incorporate the benefit piece into the class and comp results.
Absolutely. I think in corporate America, that's what they always look at, the total compensation. So I think we ought to look at that as well. Thank you.
Mr. Larson?
I think mine's along the same lines as what Mr. Edwards brought up. I guess I might need some education. I find it very difficult to do a wage study, comparison study, without also simultaneously factoring in the benefits. And so I'm a little weary about having half done in-house and half done externally when I think they're probably pretty intertwined in terms of how you make a determination. And so I don't know if there's, I don't know if there's a plan for that, I guess. And I will say this, and this is not to be overly harsh, but it's challenging too, as we said, hey, we think we're pretty well situated with the benefits, so we're gonna do that in-house. And the preceding statement makes me concerned about the second statement, because I don't want someone who has a preconceived idea of where we're at, good or bad, conducting that research.
So if the direction of council is you'd like us to contract out for the benefits comparison, we certainly can. So we're happy to do that. So to be clear, the benefits comparison is very much a black and white sort of comparison. So what is your TMRS match? How many hours of vacation do you get? How many hours of sick leave do you get? Whether or not you offer the at-cost to retirees. So if the direction of council is, we're certainly happy to contract out for that. What we found in looking at it internally over the years is that's a pretty easy comparison to make. And then it's just a matter of having those two numbers and sort of combining them to say, here's where we are relative to the benchmark. But if it's direction of council, we can contract.
Well, just to clarify that then, so you're saying the way that benefits are calculated is primarily an objective task of adding actual dollars and not a subjective task of assigning benefits to particular roles?
So the way in the last class and comp study we looked at benefits, it was really with the benchmark cities, the same cities, and we can pull those and use them, where literally you went and you have a spreadsheet or a chart that says, this is how many weeks of vacation we offer, how many hours of vacation, this is how many hours of sick leave, this is the cost of health insurance for an employee only, for dependent, and literally that information is easy to pull. So again, we can certainly provide the last class and comp study if council would like to look at it. But again, we're happy to, I think the same thing applies. HR has plenty of work. We can certainly contract it out. I think when we did the review of the insurance, we re-looked at a large component of that, so we have most of that data. So this is one that, from a staff perspective, we felt like we had most of it, could do it, but if you'd rather, we can just contract out and have it.
I guess if you're saying that proportion of the study is not necessarily a bunch of value-based decisions, but just a tallying of numbers, I'm okay with with staff's recommendation of doing it internally. I was just more concerned of if there's a lot of value judgments that need to be made or subjective calls. I didn't think that was great. But you're saying for that, it's mostly a measure of adding numbers together, and I'm happy
really
with.
is. Those of you on council will remember the last class and comp study. It was literally a spreadsheet chart where here's the vacation, here's the sick leave, here's the holiday pay we give, where you have a spreadsheet and it sort of is what it is. You know, at some point, you can look at all that data and you can say, here's where we're high, low, relative to the others. How you then weight that relative to salary becomes a bit more subjective, but.
All right, that makes sense. Thank you.
Dr. Scagliola?
Yeah, I wasn't around for the 2015 study. What was the cost of that study, though?
It was approximately $75,000.
$75,000. Primarily, what were the lessons learned from that study?
There were several takeaways, at least from a human resources perspective. We found that our job descriptions were really key, that we, going into the study and even afterwards, we weren't appropriately situated in departments. I mean, what we were expecting of our positions and the requirements of our positions didn't line up. But one of the biggest things I will say that I found was, and this was really about the methodology that was used in the study, was we weren't always comparing apples to apples. And so I think it'll be that much more important this year for us to be confident in our job descriptions. And as I mentioned, we've historically had an issue with having some one-off titles that we can't find matches for, and it just creates a lot of problems. So that's some of the lessons learned, I think. And I don't know, Brian, if you have anything else.
Yeah, I'm just wondering, one of the things I don't like to do is to schedule a meeting so that we can schedule when we're going to have our next meeting. I don't like conducting a study when we haven't really exhausted all the opportunities from the previous study that we have. Have we really exhausted? Have we learned everything we possibly can from our previous study?
We did take several of the recommendations, and again, I'm happy to provide you with the full report, but for instance, they talked about in compression being an issue. So in the last study, there was a recommendation for us to expand our pay table to include from 15 steps to 20. We did that. A lot of the positions we looked at for the specific recommendations that they made, title changes, and then obviously with the implementation of the salary, the wages themselves. So I feel like we got what we could out of that study, and it's time to move forward.
Okay, good. Explain the 45th percentile. Is that a bell-shaped curve? Is it a uniform distribution? What's going on with that?
So, Councilman, you're going to dance rings around me. I will misspeak. The analogy we were given is relative to sort of an SAT test, you may recall, that you took coming out, in terms of your percentile, where you are relative to everyone else. Again, you know this much better than I, so certainly I will misspeak. But in terms of if we line up the pay ranges, generally for our benchmark cities, where we fall relative to that. So starting with the highest and lowest and everybody in between, we fell bottom half.
Yeah, the problem with averages is they a lot of times they don't work in the long run. It's just an average. If the average is $50,000, then if we're paying $45,000, well, you can say, well, that's below the average by $5,000. But where did that average come from? And it's really difficult to generate that type of information in an aggregate, especially when we can't even clearly identify what some of the job descriptions are.
Sure.
And that's the only problem I have with that. It is a number one issue. Pay is a number one issue. I understand that. But I'd like to quantify it versus just using a qualitative assessment. Now, there is no answer to that. I understand.
I was going to ask a question, but that's okay.
Well, talk to me later. What do we hope to get specifically out of this next study, and what do you think it'll cost?
That I received, benefits not included, we were looking at approximately $55,000 to $60,000 for the class and comp portion. And that's preliminary numbers. For the staffing study, I received an estimate of approximately
Okay, no more questions, sir.
Very good. Mr. Brown?
Well, I remember although I wasn't on council at the time, I do remember the study and the purposes for it, and I think right now we're probably at that 5-year point, and it's about time to do a good review again, because that did bring up a lot of shortfalls that we had at the time. A lot of fixes have been put in place. Now it's time for that third party to come in and say, hey, where are we at? How did we do? Are we making good progress? And is it time to do something different? So I'm in favor of the third party reviews.
Mr. Davis?
Yeah. Do we really have that many job positions that have unique titles? I mean, this is a municipal government. Police officer is a police officer. A firefighter is a firefighter. A public works person, a streets person. These are not all unique. This is not a unique company. This is not a unique activity. This is a municipal government. So I can't believe that we have that many unique job descriptions unless we've been out creating things that we've been creating titles just for the sake of creating titles. I do believe, like Councilman Larson said, I do believe that we have to, at some point, have that discussion with the outside party. I'm all for an outside party to come in and give us a good comparison. I do believe that our compensation part, our benefits package, has to be part of their proposal. Because that all plays into the total bottom line for both the city and for the employee. You know, we turn around and have a good benefits package. If we pay 100% of the medical coverage for a single person, and we pay 100% of the medical coverage for a family, well, if I have two workers in the same department, at the end of the day, one's getting paid substantially more than the other because they don't have to take money out of their pocket to pay for their coverage for their family. So in other words, if I have two street workers, street worker one, and let's say their salary is $30,000 apiece, if the other one is getting a benefit of $3,000 a year for their single person medical coverage, and the other person's getting comped $6,000 or $7,000 or $8,000 or $10,000 a year for their family coverage, at the end of the day, that one person's getting $40,000 in compensation, and the other person's getting $33,000. And that could definitely affect the turnover in those kind of departments. It also has a significant impact on our budget, because if I have 10 Parks One or Street One workers that are costing me $3,000 for single family or single person coverage, and they all leave, and they're all replaced with married people with kids, I've gone from $30,000 to $70,000 or $80,000 or $90,000 or $100,000 in our budgeting process. So I really do think on the outside we have to look at, I know we have the data of what we do, and it should be relatively easy for them to compare what we give for vacation hours, what we give for medical coverage and everything else. But I really do think that that is a factor that has to come out in that report with regards to the overall compensation. Because at the end of the day, if you're just looking at the number and saying, well, we're only at the 45th percentile, but we're at the 100th percentile for vacation time and medical coverage and everything else, then maybe it's pretty good to be at the 45th percentile. I don't see how we can separate those two things, because at the end of the day, those are all factors that play into that person's compensation and their work environment.
Mr. Edwards?
You know, so just a quick thing about the compensation. The reason I'm asking for a total compensation review is it would be simply because, guys, we provide a pension, okay? There's a pension that's provided here. Let me tell you about the rest of the world. The rest of the world that we live in corporate America, Michael, you probably have a pension, right? But most corporations are not offering pensions anymore. Everyone's going to
not in the company that bought us.
Right.
It's different now.
It's now everybody's going to a defined contribution. You know what you put into the program now. So we have to really consider what we're doing when it's just compensation. It cannot be just compensation. We have to think about the total compensation, also what we're paying in the legacy costs for the families that we're bringing on as well. That's something that we have to take into account, because the taxpayers, we're responsible for being good stewards over their money, so we have to actually think like that. So I just thought I'd bring that up. And maybe, Brian, I know you're saying we should contract out another study, but why not include that into that study?
So to be clear, if council so desires, we can contract out to have this company do the benefits portion as well. That's what we did last time. Now, one of the things we're going to need to go back that I'm hearing from council that's different than the study we did last time that I don't recall hearing commentary on is you may recall that the percentile was based on our salaries. They then provided a qualitative summary of where we landed relative to benefits. What I'm hearing council say is you want to merge those and have a quantitative that compares all of those. I've not seen a study that does that. Part of the challenge is, as Councilman Davis points out, and here's why. Because, and I think it goes to what Councilman Davis said, which is every employee's level of benefit is different. So again, if it's an individual, we said this is what you get for health insurance. If it's a family, well, we don't pay the full cost of insurance for families. We pay a portion of that. And so I think it's a bit of how you factor that in and how you average it. We can certainly talk to them and say, what I want is one number that captures both of those. What we did instead, you may recall from the last study, is we had a number that captured where we were relative to salaries, and then we had a qualitative that said, with regard to these areas of benefits, we generally are consistent with other communities, we lag behind, or we're ahead in other communities. And then part of our discussion, as I recall at the time, was what are sort of the costs associated with that to factor in? Because again, I think part of the issue was if our benefits are substantially higher, you're right, we need to consider that and say, yeah, we may not pay quite as much, but that's because we're providing a greater level of benefit through those other things. And so again, if you recall the study we did before, it was sort of a qualitative assessment of the benefits in the same report with the quantitative on the salary. But we can certainly look to a firm that can quantify, merge those. I don't know that I've seen one done that way, and see if we can get somebody to sort of do that for us. We can certainly look at it.
Brian, you're saying you've never seen one done in municipal government, right? That's what you mean.
That's right. I've not seen one done in municipal government that quantifies and merges those.
Because it's done all the time in corporations. And so the reason why I'm saying that, guys, how hard was it to find, we had positions that we had new employees come up tonight, right?
Right.
How hard was it to fill those positions?
It varied. The police officer position was extremely difficult to fill. I think right now we've got 8 or so PD positions that are vacant.
Some steps to get, with the approval of the academy program, we try to be innovative in ways that we can attract more, but historically, yes, we've had time filling some jobs.
So with that being the case, and you look at all the hiring that we've done over the years, so I'll put it very simply: you have almost full employment. I'm not talking about the 3.7% unemployment. I'm talking about full employment in this country right now.
Yes, sir.
So when you look at it, yes, it's going to be difficult because you don't have people with select skills. However, I don't see a line of people lining up, walking into human resources saying, I'm leaving the city of Schertz. The line is to get in the door, it's not to leave. Because the benefits are great, the pay is good, okay? And I think the pay is extremely good. And the pension, you have to think about the income streams in retirement, what they're going to have. And so those are things that I think are extremely important to those employees as well.
Yes, sir.
So.
Anyone else? I think overall what you're hearing from the council is we'd rather spend a few extra dollars and get it right. We'd like to see a synthesis of both measures, the benefits measure and if they can't if the companies that are out there can't get us all the way there, then let's hear their proposals for what they can do, what they do feel competent to do. I think that I also hear from the council that we want to make sure that we're taking the next step. We're moving the needle, the next turn of the crank, pick your favorite phrase, and raising the bar from where we have been in the past once again. I know that we don't have the resources to say we all want to be at the 55th percentile across the board and we want to do it in a year. I get it, but I think this is definitively around, how can we continue to get better as an organization in the way that we compensate the people that work for us and the things that we do, so that we do get to a place, as Mr. Edwards described, where the line is to come in and the attrition rate overall is below 9 or 10%. They're lofty goals. It's not easy to do those things in any organization, but I do feel like the council is saying let's spend the money to get it right and get it right the first time. Everybody good? Dr. Brown,
Mayor.
please.
So let's just be careful when we're talking about an aggregate number, that's really, going to give us the data that we want, because in the end, we've got to determine a salary rate and we've got to determine the benefits rate. We've got to make two separate calculations, it seems to me, anyway. And you can say, well, if I know the benefits, then I can sort of back into the salary, I suppose, based on the total package. That's not really how we do salary. We do salary based on what is competitive for a position. That's how we determine the right salary for the individual. So, I think it would probably be valuable to have a merged number, but I don't think that's a panacea. And I think we ought to move carefully and make sure that's really what we want. Maybe we want a merged data, but maybe we also want to break it out. So, can you do it that way too?
Maybe what we do, my suggestion would be when we select a firm, before we enter the contract, that firm can do a presentation to council on their methodology, and then you can give them guidance as to how you think it should be done.
That sounds good. All right, let's march forward. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. All right, next up, we have a brief discussion and possible action regarding the City Council Code of Ethics. I asked this be put on the agenda. I mentioned that I was going to have it put on the agenda. Since the last time that we talked about this, I've taken a look at what the City of San Antonio does. I took a look actually at the Live Oak ordinance, which has an ethics review board built within their ordinance, actually written by the firm that we have hired right now to represent our city. And I found that in both cities, the construct is similar. The scope of what they do is not exactly the same, but the construct is similar. And the construct is one of this, where each member of council gets to appoint someone to this ethics review board. The ethics review board convenes if and only if there is an alleged violation, and then that board reviews with the city attorney and any of the experts they want to talk to, and decides if, in fact, based upon the language in the ethics code, a violation has potentially occurred, and then they refer that to the council. It's generally, that's the construct. And it gives an independent group of citizens an opportunity to look at any and all allegations that come forward with regard to ethical conduct by either members of city council or by any of our appointees. So if it's okay with the council, I'd like to ask Mr. Santee to put together copies for you and email them out in the next week or so of the ordinances that Live Oak uses, that San Antonio uses, and just give you an opportunity to look at those and think a little more about this. My concern with the way that we have things constructed right now is that anyone could bring a completely spurious accusation, and we have to put that on an agenda and go into closed session, even if it has no merit. My concern there is, well, what if someone, and I'm not trying to give this out as an idea for anyone that might be watching a video, but what if someone decided they wanted to bring 100 separate allegations and force us to determine in a closed session each one of those as to whether they're valid or spurious? That could, frankly, hijack a meeting. So I think there needs to be a method by which an independent group of citizens from this city has an opportunity to look at allegations made and determine whether or not they should be brought forward to the city council. I'm certainly willing to hear from any member of the council who wants to say, hey, Mayor, sounds great, or you're crazy, or I've got a completely different idea. But if there's not that, then I'll ask Mr. Santee to send some materials out for us all to read and then move forward. But Mr. Edwards?
I also like to know if you're going to do this, Mr. Santee, make sure we get copies of the red lines for each one. If you're going to do what the city of San Antonio does, the city of Live Oak, if you don't mind, if you're proposing something to us. And the last thing is also, how do we handle a false allegation as well? We need to determine that also.
Well, I think an ethics review board would review any allegation, and if the ethics review board finds that there is no merit, then the recommendation would be that the city council take no action. Now, in Live Oak, I went and looked to see what the reports are from the board for the last many years. They meet once a year, and the report says we've had no allegations brought forward, and our report is that we've conducted no business. Obviously, that's the ideal. So it is a bit of an ad hoc board in that they only meet if an allegation is brought forward, or once a year to say we didn't have anything come to us. If they do have anything come to them, then obviously I believe that both ordinances direct that board as to how they report their actions. So there is transparency for the public, but there's not a how do I want to put it, a legitimizing of a spurious allegation. That way it takes it and puts it in the hands of our neighbors to determine if we've done anything wrong or any of our appointees have done anything wrong, and they get to have a neutral view as opposed to we have to assume everything that's brought before us is legitimate and we have to go into closed session and talk about it. I don't want it to be a political tool. I want it to be a fair and judicious process that tosses aside things that are without merit but gives weight and judiciousness, if I may, to things that are real. Any other thoughts on this one? If there's no takers, then Mr. Santee, if you just get us a copy of the Live Oak ordinance and a copy of the San Antonio ordinance, and if there are any others that you think we should look at, review, consider, or recommendations that the firm has about how we might handle this, understanding the goals that we've just stated, we want to make sure that those things that are spurious are set aside, those things that are legitimate are brought forward, and that we maintain perhaps even more transparency than we have now. How do we make sure that the public has at least some level of visibility as to what was brought forward and what the findings of that board were? The more that we are, in fact, transparent, the more that we have processes and methodologies that ensure fairness, I think the better off we are. All right. If nothing else, then I'm going to move on to the consent agenda. The first item that we have on the consent agenda this evening are minutes. That's approval of the minutes of the regular meeting of February 26th. Item number 2, Resolution 19R27, a resolution by the City Council of the City of Schertz, Texas, authorizing purchases with CDW of up to $130,000, an increase from the previously approved amount of $95,000 related to hardware and other matters in connection therewith. And item number 3, Resolution 19R28, a resolution by the City Council of the City of Schertz, Texas, authorizing expenditures in excess of $50,000 with TF Harper and Associates, a buy-board purchasing cooperative vendor, and authorizing a purchase totaling $104,083 for the Ashley Park renovation project. Any of these that need to be pulled and considered individually? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve the items on consent?
So moved. Second.
I have a motion from Mr. Davis, a second from Mr. Gutierrez. Are there comments or questions from council? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
I have 7.5 ayes, no nays. 7 ayes, no nays. Motion carries. Discussion and action items. We have ordinance 19T09. We have an ordinance by the City Council of the City of Schertz, Texas, authorizing adjustment to the fiscal year 2018-2019 budget, repealing all ordinances or parts of ordinances in conflict with this ordinance and providing an effective date. This is the first reading. Miles, good evening, sir.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Council, Mr. Brown. Tonight, what we're looking to do is do a budget amendment to fund the balance of the funds that we're going to need to purchase the new phone system. For those of you who have heard us, or if you've seen the memos that we sent you earlier this year, the existing phone system has been out of service and out of warranty now for 2 years. The vendor that manufactures it is no longer supplies parts. The company local that supported us went out of business, and I can't even buy phones on eBay for the current system. So we do need to make a move. Slowly but surely, we're going to find one day that we're going to need to make a move. So we put the team together.
You mean we've squeezed all the life out of the system that we can?
As much as we can. So you understand the original system was installed back in 2002, and we managed to upgrade it and piece it all together in all those years. So yes, we've certainly got our life out of it. The new system that we're contemplating is obviously a new, much more sophisticated system. We're going to have to replace all of the handsets and all the bits and pieces behind the scenes. But we're going to get some really good benefits out of it, too, and we're really excited about that, one of which is our field staff now, instead of having to worry about, getting their voicemails and having to check their voicemails, those will automatically be forwarded to their cell phones. Field staff will also have a single phone number that they can then carry around, since we issue cell phones to that staff. That will be their primary phone. So I no longer have to put a desk set or desk device out there. The city cell phone will be their single device. And we have other features and things that we're going to roll out over a period of time. But we're very excited about where we're at. We're very close to putting the final contract together. So this is the first step in getting that done. James?
This project we previously discussed, and we're planning for it to be part of an upcoming bond issuance. We're trying to get away from bonding out these small type of projects. We also move very quickly on this one, so we don't have time before the next bond issuance. But by doing so, we'll be able to save some citizens money by reducing interest fees they would normally pay, and then pay it off instantly rather than over a longer period of time. With this, we have some funds that came in over budget from the sales taxes last year that help us fund it this year through a reserve.
Questions for these gentlemen? Council? 17 years-ish on a phone system?
Yeah,
I don't
it was
know
originally built by
how
3Com, and they've
did
been
that.
out of business and sold 3 times. And so we
Exactly.
did get our money out of their system, yeah.
I'm impressed. All right. If there are no questions, is there a motion to approve Ordinance 19T09 as presented?
So moved. Second.
Motion from Mr. Davis, second from Mr. Edwards. Any other comments, questions from council? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
7 ayes and no nays. The motion carries. Thank you, gentlemen. Next item on the agenda is a roll call vote confirmation.
Consent agenda, items 1 through 3. Motion made by Councilmember Davis, seconded by Councilmember Gutierrez. The vote was Mayor Pro Tem Hayward, Councilmembers Davis, Gutierrez, Larson, Edwards, Scagliola, and Brown all voted yes. Motion passed. Item 4, 19T09, first reading. Councilmember Davis made the motion, seconded by Councilmember Edwards, Mayor Pro Tem Hayward, Councilmembers Davis, Gutierrez, Larson, Edwards, Scagliola, and Brown voted yes. Motion passed.
Very good. Thank you, ma'am. Next up, announcements by the city manager. Anything further, sir?
Just have one announcement, Mayor, and that's Evo Entertainment ribbon cutting will be Thursday from 5:30 to 6 p.m., and that'll be the Chamber of Commerce's ribbon cutting at Evo on Thursday evening, 5:30 to 6, and then after the celebration, the movies will begin, and you can get tickets online at evo-entertainment.com, and that's reserved seating only. So we're on the verge of having a brand new entertainment complex.
Fantastic. Next up, request by mayor and council members that items be placed on a future city council agenda. Mr. Larson?
Yes, so recent UT poll showed overwhelmingly bipartisan support for property tax reform, so I'd like to put an item on our agenda to discuss passing a resolution in favor of property tax reform. I know that there are a lot of people trooping into Austin speaking against taxpayer interest against that, so I think we should have a conversation about whether or not we should send our support and listen to our residents. If I can get you a draft resolution by tomorrow, can it be on next week's agenda?
We can have it on next week's agenda, certainly.
Thank you.
We can do it.
And by getting a draft to us tomorrow, we can all mark it up and do things to it. I think
You bet, as long as you're on record about what you write.
Absolutely. I think it'll be a lively discussion. Mr. Davis?
In light of tonight's hearing of residents, can we, in looking at the UDC, it seems lately we've had a lot of discussions on walls and the tree ordinance and other parts of the UDC. And to me, the UDC is a living document. Sometimes it's built with great intentions that over time I think we find out that it doesn't really work the way we hoped it would work, or we find out that the vision of the residents for their community changes over time. So could we get a presentation from the staff on the UDC, and perhaps going from that, maybe a joint meeting of P&Z and the council? I'm not sure how fast we would need a joint meeting, but I guess we'd like a presentation on the UDC and a staff interpretation of what areas they're having problems with that may be impacting development and the future growth of our community. And I don't know. I'm suggesting planning and zoning, but maybe we need to have a meeting with we've had a couple of the mega meetings where we've had P&Z and EDC together. Maybe it's time to have a large forum and get some input from a variety of sources. Maybe even a city charrette or something where we can get input from the public that may help guide future changes to the UDC.
Right. I think it's great value. I'm sorry, Mr. Edwards, go ahead.
No, you go ahead, Mr. Mayor, because I was going to speak.
I think it's great value in taking a look at our UDC from time to time. We've at every turn over the last 14 years, and I say at every turn, that may be speaking in absolutes. There have been many, many times when our UDC has not anticipated either unique situations or current environment. And we should be taking a regular look at it. I know that we do. I know that it's a huge undertaking to make changes. I understand it's one of the most challenging areas for a city to work through. I mean, I remember when I was early on elected, what we did with the sign ordinances, and we struggled. And Mr. Roberts has some great stories about that too. But if you would, let's have an overview workshop. Call it, we'll ignore the rules of procedure. Let's set aside a half hour to walk through and talk about some of the high points of where we have some challenges, and let's go from there forward, whether we need to engage with planning and zoning or whether we need to engage with the EDC or both or multiple sessions. It is timely, and it is certainly the job of the council to hear what the effects of our legislation are on the development community. Mr. Edwards?
No, I agree with that, Mr. Mayor. I think, what revision are we on our UDC now? 8? I know it was 7. What revision are we on? Does anybody know?
We've moved away from the large wholesale revisions, and we make amendments to sections, so we're not tracking the numbers.
We were at 7 when I.
We were probably at 7. We've probably done 15, 16 now.
Yeah. So I understand what Mark is saying. I understand. I've talked to people who are building homes out in Schertz Forest and other areas as well, and they're all coming in and saying, man, they're all kinds of issues. So I agree. We need to have that meeting. Thank you, Mr. Davis, for bringing it up. But Mr. Mayor, I want to bring up the social media thing again. I received the information in the packet last week, and it was basically a couple of paragraphs saying this is what we've done for council. After listening to what Mr. Bolter said, I'm kind of lost. I got to admit, and I don't know if you guys are or not, but he was saying that there were some things that were, I guess, on social media websites or something. I don't know if members of the council were on it, but I don't think I got the answer that I needed from this information in the packet last week. So I don't know where, maybe I'm completely missing the boat here with these websites out there on Facebook or wherever it was. I don't know. So I don't know if I'm asking you guys for a better definition of what he's discussing, because I have no idea.
We can sit down and talk to you if you would
Okay.
like to do that. You know,
Okay,
kind of our
absolutely.
Public affairs, and sure, we can have.
Okay, because I don't know what's going on what's happening with the social media thing, and I don't know if anyone on our dais attacked him. I want to apologize for them publicly, because that's not fair. So, all right, thank you.
All right, anyone else? Dr. Scagliola.
I was a little concerned last week. A number of drainage projects were brought up, and the money just wasn't available. So they sent them back to get new bids, and it turns out instead of 5 projects, there was only enough funding for 2. I'd like to discuss where we can find the funding to actually complete the rest of those projects. And that's all I have.
Mr. James, you have what you need to put that presentation together? You good?
Yes, sir.
Because I'm pretty sure it's going to come to you. Anyone else? All right, well, that should help load up our next agenda. Lot of things to discuss there. Next item on the agenda this evening, however, are announcements by the mayor and council members, and we'll start with Mayor Pro Tem Hayward.
Last week, I went to the TABCCM quarterly meeting in San Marcos, and then after which I attended the elected officials conference in San Marcos. It was Wednesday to Friday. There was a lot of information that I received, and I'm still taking it all in, and I'm sure I'll have lots of questions later on different information. But it was a lot of information, and I really appreciated going and learning. That's all I have.
Very good. Mr. Davis?
Nothing, sir.
Mr. Gutierrez?
Couple of things. First, firefighters promotion ceremony that I attended. Great to see 5 in-house promotions. I also went to the Sweetheart Court that hosted a fundraiser at Canes, and a retirement ceremony for Sandy Bryan after 27 years of service to this city. Thank you very much, Sandy. Appreciate it. And also participated in the 11th annual Willincheck Run for Cancer. We had a great attendance and especially a great job by our city staff.
Very good. Mr. Larson? Nothing. Mr. Edwards?
Nothing, sir.
Dr. Scagliola?
Last week was fairly busy. As Councilmember Gutierrez was saying, the firefighters promotion happened last Thursday, and also Sandy's retirement. Now, the good thing is Sandy hasn't gone away. Nice seeing you again. She's just not on the payroll anymore. So hope you stick around. Friday, Homes for Pets had their fundraiser, and I won a tricycle. Yeah, I did. I may even ride it in a parade. I'm not sure. Saturday, Willincheck Walk for Life. Super event. And then today I went by for the spring cleanup. Just one thing, if you do go by, it's really easy, and have a great bunch of people working there, but you got to show proof of residency. So okay, that's understandable, I guess. That's all I have, sir.
Very good. Mr. Brown?
Again, the Willincheck Walk for Life was a lot of fun. I commend Councilman Gutierrez for his rapid pace throughout that race. He really showed a lot of people up, and Dr. Brown for pacing everybody else. I was very impressed with you all up there, and it was always good to see everybody out there. It's a great event. That's all.
Very good. I want to thank Mayor Pro Tem Hayward for covering 2 meetings while I was on the road doing my day job to earn a living. Welcome to the middle seat. It can be entertaining from time to time. And thank you all very much once again for the birthday wishes. It warms my heart, and I'm most appreciative. And with that, if there's nothing else from council or from staff, then we stand adjourned.